There, so.
Meeting to order. Ms. Wanda, would you please read the complaints?
In accordance with the South Carolina Code of Laws, 1976, Section 30-4-80D is amended. Notification of the meeting and the meeting agenda were posted at least 24 hours prior to the meeting on the County Council building at a publicly accessible place. On the county website, a copy of the agenda was provided to the local news media and all persons and organizations requesting notification.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Executive session, section 30-4-70. The public body may hold a meeting closed to the public for one or more of the following reasons. 1. Discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release of an employee, a student, or a person regulated by a public body, or appointment of a person to a public body. 1. Personal matter involving an employee complaint. 2. Elected officials' salaries. 2. Discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contract arrangements and proposed purchase of sale of property. The receipt of legal advice where the legal advice related to pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of a public agency in other adversary situations involving the assertions against the agency of a claim. 1. Legal tax sale overage litigation case 2025 CP 2700011, case 2025 CP 2700071, airport litigation case 2025 CV 271030030. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss the matters just read.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any comment? Hearing no comment, all those in favor say aye and raise their hand. Aye. All against? Hearing none, motion is passed. In the executive session.
All right, I have hard copies.
I'd like to have a motion to come out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we come out of executive session.
Is there any second?
Second.
Any comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All against? Are there any motions coming out of executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move to authorize the administration and our outside counsel to proceed with the handling of employee complaints as recommended by counsel.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve, disapprove, or amend?
You just made the motion.
Oh, I did?
No, he did.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Do I have a second? Sorry.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? Motion is passed.
Can I have that for to get to?
I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Did you make the motion, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any comment? All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All against? Hearing none, motion is passed. Kimberly Burgess, consideration of the second reading of ordinance 2025-14 to provide for the levy of tax for public purposes in Jasper County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, and to make appropriations for said purposes, to adopt and approve the Jasper County capital and operations budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, to adopt and approve the Jasper County School District capital 2026, excuse me, I got mixed up, and operations budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, to approve for the levy of taxation for the fiscal year 2025-2026, to limit the disbursements by the county treasurer to those appropriated by law, to provide that expenditures do not exceed appropriations, to authorize tax anticipation notes, to make authorization of certain transfers, to provide for additional appropriations and borrowing, to codify Jasper County rates and fees, to provide for lapsing funds and continuing appropriations for subsequent years, to require certain agencies and departments to file accounts, to require the treasurer to sign general fund checks, provide compliance with Act Number 317 of 1990, to provide certain benefits to council members, to provide for county commission and committee stipends, to provide for jury mileage, to adopt property values, and to provide for effective date of this ordinance and matters related thereto. Do I have a motion? Oh, excuse me, Kimberly.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm just not with it today.
That's okay. If it's okay, I'm going to be seated because I'm also working the computer. And I did hand out, you all have the, this is the latest and greatest version. This is fiscal year 2026, second reading. So I need to do a little walking. Hopefully it all come together here. So I sent out the Q&As as a PDF, and that included Chief Wells's responses. I left his in blue so you could distinguish what you received Monday compared to what you received today. And the thank you. So the second reading, I've got second reading here. Second reading of this, the bottom line is $66,324,415, and that is the result of several changes that have been incorporated from the first reading. So we have talked about some of these changes over the last several meetings, but they are now in this document from the May 19th budget that you received. So the first change we previously talked about was we reduced the Cherry Point revenue because we changed the millage back to the 31. So that's a decrease in the revenue of $608,600. The clerk of court came before you with his presentation and added some additional revenue. He added $75,000 for the clerk of court funds, and then another $252,000 for the Title IV funds. There were also, sorry, I don't know where this went. There were also some various changes in the property taxes, auto taxes, local option sales tax, and the local option sales tax credit. I I increased the fee in lieu slightly based upon what our consultant recommended or anticipates our revenue to be. Also, I increased the miscellaneous revenue slightly. It's more along the lines of what we actually have received, and we anticipate that as long as everything goes well with the FEMA funding, that we should receive quite a bit of FEMA reimbursement for various storms that we've had in the last several years. The other one is the cash. The big one is that we've reduced the cash carry forward by $716,000, and we'll talk about that. We'll
That's
go
good.
into these
That's
expenditures.
good.
Yes, sir. That's good. That's ideal. That's the direction we want to go. So, and then bond proceeds went up slightly, and that should be a sufficient amount to refund the what we call the Series 2014 Special Revenue Installment Purchase Revenue Bonds that we had initially planned to refund using our debt service, but have determined that that is an inappropriate use of the debt service. So, and then the watercraft went down slightly. As I mentioned, I think previously, we need to double check how things are being recorded and appropriated in that particular line item to make sure that, because it was only like $75,000, that as I calculate it based on assessed value and millage rates, it should be higher. So we're going to look at that as we approach year end. The reductions in expenditures that we had that are reflected in this reading of the budget, we had a decrease in firefighter physicals in both the Levy, or Department 45, and in 46 by $10,000. And then there was a significant decrease of $450,000 in the salary and wage line item for Department 46, which is fire rescue. And that was just sort of picked up the wrong column basically on the spreadsheet. So that has been, we've revised that number, brought that down. And then we've done some sort of back and forth, taking it from one department to another. We reduced we increased the GIS expenditures because we realized that we didn't have, there's a contract that we have with ESRI, and we did not have that one included. And we also added the $19,300 that came from the planning department, because the GIS expenditures needs to have some additional funds for other expenditures other than the two contracts that are referenced if you look in the notes in that particular line item. Vehicle lease payments, that was increased but to reflect the actual, what's happening there. And then we also, in Department 51, which is, I don't have that highlighted, but that's administration. We talked about that Monday. We're going to move the current vehicle that's in administration, that's a leased vehicle, it's a Traverse, and we're going to basically move that into the clerk of court so that we don't actually get a new vehicle. We're just transferring that vehicle over because we don't, there's not a lot of use of that administrative vehicle, and the clerk of court is primarily the one who uses it. So those line items, the lease payments, the insurance, the maintenance, gas and oil have decreased now. You see there's zero in Department 51, and then you'll see not quite but almost offsetting increase in the clerk of court. So while we were going through this and with the budget, every time we look at it, there's always something that we feel like we could have added that or we missed something. And one of the things that we have talked about with code enforcement, business license, building and planning official, thank you, I don't know what the title is that we would like to get a new module that will allow them to communicate with each other. It's part of what we already have as far as our system goes, so it will also integrate into our accounting system. It's about 36 to, they said about 36, but that quote's a bit old, and I also thought there might be some training that we would need for that, so we took that up by about 40,000 for that one line item. And then, as I believe on Monday, we talked about reducing the sheriff, new personnel, we're taking out $1 million for the new personnel for the sheriff. And so that has been removed from this budget. Planning department, we had a slight increase in the salary and wages, and then that consulting, you see that's a decrease. That was moved to the GIS expenditure, so it's basically an offset. Interdepartmental, small correction there. Consulting services, some of that was moved from 663772, which is the line item that was in the building, and that was they don't use that, and so that's two things. That's also the auditors, 40,000. We moved that from the auditor into that, and then there was some. I believe we had an additional amount, which I didn't note there, from the building and planning debt. So we increased our debt from $1,194,000 to $2,410,300, and that's debt payments as well as some. I don't think it's leases. I think that's just the bond payments that we'll have. So, and that would be principal and interest there. And the clerk of court, we've already talked about those. The clerk of court brought his changes to you. So now these changes are reflected in this budget. And you'll see that we added the vehicle, gasoline, grease, insurance, and the lease payments to that. The next one is the auditor. We took those consulting services back to the line item in 62 because it benefits, Department 62 is what we call interdepartmental, and it benefits basically the entire county. So it's not easily identified with one particular department. The treasurer, as he mentioned in his presentation, he wanted to remove remove 40,000 from the salary and wage line because he had a full-time person who was now going to convert to a part-time employee. So reduction of 40,000 and then the addition of 27,000 per his request. And the equipment, security equipment, we moved that to 83, which is building maintenance. Again, and then also the 20,000 with the election commission, the building repairs, they said they didn't want it in their particular department. So we moved that into the building repairs line item in 83. Sergeant Jasper Park, there was a slight wage difference that I needed to correct. And then we had, in the building maintenance, you see the equipment, the 5,000 that came from the sheriff's office, and then the building repairs, the 20,000 that came from the election commission. And then the other large, and I just did it in total because it affects all departments, and I sent each of you the cost of living calculation, but essentially reducing that from 5 to 3, we now have 856,800 in the budget. It was originally 1,383,400, so that is a reduction of 526,600. So that all of that impacts this particular cash carry forward line item, or decreases it. So, and right now the millage rate, the operating millage rate remains at 145. The debt millage rate remains at 5. And then Cherry Point is at 31. So I didn't know if you had any questions. We've answered Mr. Riles, Mr. Kemp. We're working on yours. we have a few questions that need to be answered. So if it's, would be more, we could give you a more complete answers on the next budget workshop. I think it's the 11th or sometime.
You usually have them on the line.
On the 9th. On the 9th.
You've got
Oh,
the 11th.
Okay, so it's one of those meetings, preferably the 9th, we'll be able to provide additional, answer those questions that Mr. Kim provided.
6-9, what was that for? That's, what meeting is that?
It's a standalone workshop. Mr.
Okay.
Kemp, we talked about it being budget / affordable housing.
Van Giesen.
I mean, I just need to sit down and go through this. So I don't have any questions at this moment.
Mr. Orsello?
For second reading, no.
With this being said, I do thank you, thank you for indulging me with this meeting tonight because I couldn't be here on Monday. I do have some questions, and then as it pertains to this, I do have some research to do. I personally don't feel comfortable going with second reading tonight with it until I get that research done. We do see that there has been some deducts and additions and other things, and I want to feel certain that I feel good about what I'm looking at. And like I said, personally, I don't think tonight would be appropriate for second reading with all these changes that we're just now seeing.
I have a few questions. I'm really scared of Title IV because it keeps on coming up in the paper that people are misusing it. How can we put that into our budget as Title IV? Because it's restricted funds, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we don't do it on a lot of other restricted funds. Why do we put Title IV in restricted funds? It's restricted.
So we haven't in the past put it in our operating budget, but Mr. Horton has reached out to DSS, the provider for this Title IV, the administrator, I guess, for the state. And there are certain funds, there's two different types of Title IV funds, and there's one of them, they can contribute to the general fund, which is this amount. And it has to be used, or it goes into the general fund, so he's electing to use it to offset some of his expenses in the general fund. And I'm sure Mr. Horton could explain it better.
So we're not violating anything by showing restricted funds.
According to Mr. Horton, no. So, I mean, he might want to come, I can ask him to come back if you want additional.
No, I just want to make sure. I talked to him already.
Okay.
And I want to make sure everybody knows on that. We also know that cash carry forward is good, that we're reducing
Yes, sir.
cash carry forward.
Yes, sir.
With the sheriff's department, we took $1 million, we restricted that. Are we sure we took out all the associated funds?
I initially did. I can go back and double check, but in conversation with Chief Atwood today, prior to this meeting, there was some concern about not being able to have personnel for the campus here for security, Sheriff, to not fund that or to not have enough personnel. So I thought I'm going to ask him to give me some additional information on that, because it would basically be an offset. He's going to have more, but the administration's going to have to pay for it. So it's still coming out of county funds either way. But when I went through this, whenever they noted this is an increase for new personnel, or this is increased, I took that back, like there was one line item, I took that back to the fiscal year 2025 budget line item that was budgeted for that amount, which did not have any new personnel included in it. So as I went through it, that's where it ended up being when I calculated, it was over $3 million when you took those out. So they have been removed from this. To my, I can go back and double check, but they have been. Yes,
That's fine, I just want to make sure. On the treasurer, when he came before us on Monday,
Yes.
he said he didn't want the 3% increase or 5% increase.
Yes, and he does not, I took that out of his department. So that's part,
But it didn't show
although you
here
don't
to take
see
it
it
out.
here.
It didn't take it out of here, that's what, that
Well,
line
I-
item didn't.
For ease of presentation, it's in this bottom line here, on line 89. But if you look in this report, or in the second reading worksheet, it's not included.
Well, I have to admit that I did not read it because I didn't get it.
Well,
So,
I was
that's
working
not-
on, I was working on it very late last night, and then Chief Wells and I wanted to confirm that one change. So we did that this morning, and I got it to you.
And I'm probably gonna ask questions that you probably answered already, but again, I
Sure.
didn't, by the time I got out of a meeting this morning, came home, ate, and then came up here, it was just, I got part of it and then not all of it. But anyway, on the judges, when we changed the judges from the sheriff to outside, but you kept the sheriff's retirement. Does the judges,
So the magistrates, yes, the judges participate in the police officer retirement system.
they do,
Yes, they do. Yes, sir.
learn something every day.
Yes, sir.
Learn something every day. So, and I'm gonna echo, I'm just not, this second reading is, we have too much open, I have to discuss it, see what it is. I just don't, I can go one of two ways. I can just say, let's postpone this reading, or I have a whole bunch of amendments that I could put in there and satisfy me at least, and we could do it. We have, our object right now is to redo the budget and then make arrangements so we can have time to do it. So,
I do have answers to some of your questions.
oh, I'm sure you do. I'm not saying that. It's just the
But-
timing and was too fast, and I didn't expect it to be,
Yes.
so many changes on this.
So it's, so I do have some, and, there's some, like, changes that you recommended that, like, for instance, in Department 53, the tax collector, you had a reduction of 38,000, but she's already spent 36,000, so if we took that down to 12, she would be over budget. She's, because it's a per property charge of about $35 per property for someone to post that property as a delinquent, and that amount goes up each year, and that's also reimbursed in the delinquent tax. It's added to the delinquent tax bill in September.
Well,
So after it's posted, it's reimbursed, so we collect it.
most of these were because it was sustained, and then there was nothing, it just says, we did it last year, so we're gonna do it this year. And last year, we didn't use any of the money in the year before. I look back 2 years essentially on most of this stuff on it. So all I'm asking for is a line item why you're asking for that money, not just sustain.
So I think we'll be more prepared to discuss this.
And what I'm trying to do is raise that fund up that we're trying to do by taking money.
Try to reduce that fund.
Well, whatever.
Reduce one to add to another.
Right, reduce one day to another. I don't want to take the money away. I just want to know to the point of, hey, we make a decision, we're responsible for making these decisions, and we're okay, but if you don't tell us, I mean, I've already had a problem with the last decision we made. Somebody called me about it. And because we didn't have the right, according to her, we didn't have the right information. I'm just saying.
I'm not following, so. Okay.
What? What?
I don't know what that decision was.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you. So, anyway,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you've got a workshop plan standalone for the 9th, right? It's coming
Right.
Monday, and that would be affordable housing, and you have some time in the budget, so it gives you a little more time to review this information. On the 16th, we have yet to set the agenda, which we'll be working on tomorrow, right? There will be a public hearing, it's been advertised, but you have the option to consider a second reading then. So if you wanted to have more time to do that, you could actually push for another special meeting at the end of the month, potentially, and have your third reading scheduled for the 30th. That would give you much more time.
I'm just gonna ask, Mr. Van Giesen, would you be with that, postpone this until later?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
Georgella?
My question would be, is there any difference approving the second reading and just not approving the third reading? Is there any change?
Because I haven't read there is a change, because we don't know, we gave, at least Joe and myself gave quite a few questions, and we just like to see what they are, essentially.
I mean, I'm fine, I just, technically this, until we approve the third reading, we're still, but like I said, I'm fine. I do have one little thing that I want to touch base. I'm a little concerned about the $1 million. Because of the possible $2 million that attracts, or unfunded liability. By saying we're taking $1 million, you know where I'm going with this. Are we still, say if we hire 3 people, then we have an unfunded liability that can somehow be something that has to get worked out after the fact. And I'm just wondering if it needs to be addressed now.
It could be, we could have another budget amendment if Sheriff Malphus, similar to what Mr. Horton did when he came in and requested additional personnel and increases, then it could be a budget amendment as a result of that if the sheriff came back to you after this budget was approved.
And if
Just as a reminder, we've had first reading of a potential budget amendment that could take place no later than the end of August. So if there's what you're talking about, Mr. Arzilla, if there's we missed something, we need to adjust it, that you've already built in the beginning of the procedure to do that in July and August, after you pass the June 30th.
That's why I put it in.
Yes, sir.
I
That's
tried
right.
that.
I just wanted to remind you.
It would be more comfortable for us to hash this out and gave us, we did the compliance of the law, but we also had a way of.
Yes, sir, to just make a second guess.
It makes it easy for everybody, because everybody's more comfortable if they've made a mistake, or they can look at it themselves. More discussion.
I think it's the right thing to do. If you have some questions, you have to review the information. I think deferring the second reading is a very smart thing. I think you want to have it in substantial
And that would be the
final form.
16th,
You can do that on the 16th, yes, sir.
and then the 9th will be a budget workshop, and
That's correct. And so with the 16th prior to the meeting,
Because we still have the school board to look at.
and I'm sorry, where is the school district?
That'd be on the 11th.
On the 11th, I'm sorry, yeah. So you're going to have, a partial workshop on the 9th. You're scheduled to have the school district on the 11th. You'll have the opportunity to have another workshop prior to the meeting on the 16th, and then potentially take up second reading on the 16th. But that would require that you commit to having an additional special meeting, which I just logically looked at the calendar and thought maybe that following Monday, which would be the last Monday of the month, you could consider it then.
The only constraint is you have to have a certain number of days between the second and third reading. I always forget if it's 6 or 7, but
and
that
I
still
think
works.
that would be fine, because again, with everything given to me tonight, I'm just not comfortable going to second reading, and I'm sure I'll have some questions and some suggestions and things to move forward, and
I respect that, and I think that gives you much more time, so we'd be happy to take that deferral tonight if that's what you'd like to do.
Do we have any other things to talk about in the motion? Nope.
Anything?
I like, just since we have any discussion.
No, like I said, I would like to get into some of this, look at some things, because I do have some suggestions I would like to maybe discuss at our future workshops that we have, either the 9th or the 11th, to kind of maybe, I just got to look at some things to kind of see where I'm going before I open my mouth on it. But definitely think that deferring this to the 16th is for the better cause for everybody. So And I'm hoping that next year, whenever we get into budget, that we're able to see first and second reading a lot earlier and not, because potentially we're going to be third reading our last legally obligated day to be able to do so, and hopefully we can do this next year a lot sooner.
Well, Mr. Rob, we can always try to get that to you. We had a banner year last year. I think we were preparing in April, but I mean, it's typically,
That's always.
it's a catch-22, because if we give you a budget that is still very floaty with numbers, then it's not helpful either. But we will take that under advisement. We can certainly give you as much as we have earlier next year. I did want to make one other point, Mr. Kemp, I had forgotten, but we have another affordable housing, another procurement policy, potentially is a workshop on the 23rd. And of course, we could also have that as a budget workshop as well.
Right.
That
I
can
mean,
always wait.
there's plenty of time that we've scheduled already that we can adjust around.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that and your commitment to this, because that did give a lot of extra time.
And the only other thing that I do see here, but some of the COLA things, the one thing that we want to know, or want our staff to know at the county, is we want to know that we are for the staff. And we want to know some of these things with COLA and these different increases is more palatable to us if it comes at the front end to say, here's where we're going with certain things. Here's some recommendations that we're making to carry us in the future. And I think that we need to have those discussions sooner than later as we get into the budgets. That way, when people see first reading, they're thinking they're getting a 5, and then they see second reading, they're getting a 3. We don't want to be the bad guys, but we also want to know that our employees are appreciated. We want to make sure that we take them and into the future. So again, those things, as well as one of the things we did talk about when I first got elected here, was looking at salaries and making sure we definitely, when it comes to some of these things with maintenance and salaries and repairs and wishes, wants, and needs, I really do think we need to sit down strategically and come up with a plan of, now that the elected body has kind of changed, and kind of get that strategic vision and plan out there to know where we're going, some things that we need to look at. But I'll quit running my mouth, because I know some of y'all got to get out of here early tonight.
Well, I just to say that just before, I think after we all now have had a budget to go over, we've gone through the whole budget process. So I think now one of the workshops eventually will be, before the end of the year, we're sitting down with budget. And I think we have to do is schedule earlier. So we don't actually need the budget per se. We need, like say in February, we're going to say, okay, on the whatever day on March, we're going to have the sheriff come in. We're going to have the school board come in, and we're going to tell them way ahead of time so they can be prepared to come in, and maybe even give them direction on what we want.
Yes, sir.
So it's not like they're coming in and then too many times they came in and said, well, we don't know what you want. So maybe we should be proactive and do that. I mean, this is in my bale of stuff I want to do. And I've written down my notes and all this about schedule, retreat, and process, so we can know about it, you know about it, and the people that are coming here know about it.
Yes, sir. You and Mr. Van Giessen's had the same conversation with me about strategic plan. As soon as you get through this stuff, we can start working on that. I think it'll make a lot more sense. You'll have your goals and what you want to get throughout the year. And in addition to some of the things that you mentioned, Mr. Kemp, we can do that are budget oriented, but not necessarily budget items. I mentioned we need to talk about the other post-employment benefits. We need to have that discussion. And Mr. Rowell, I'd like to talk to you because we have what we call sort of a half-baked pay plan suggestion that's a little bit different than a cost of living increase that we think maybe with your help that we could devise and get implemented next year.
Right. And I know right now local governments everywhere is struggling to retain employees, and I think we need to do what we can to elevate them, but need it a little bit sooner so we can figure out how to work those things in there.
Yes, sir.
We also had, just to let you know, I always say this, first time the auditor, first time the clerk of the court has been in here to talk about it, treasurer's first time.
Right.
So we've come a long way, and I think this is the first step. Now they, you know, the order came in, she didn't know what to say or anything. She's a little bit more comfortable now, and she's breaking the fence right now, getting into the budget.
It was a lot of newness, you're right. More newness than we've ever had in 1 year. The elected officials and some new council members, a new auditor. We had a lot of things all at once. So we appreciate your patience.
Okay. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
Thanks. Do we need to take action on this tonight to defer it to the 16th?
No, sir. They don't really need to have a motion to defer it, do they? Or should they address this as an action item on the agenda? Wouldn't hurt, I guess.
It's too late in the day for me to give you an answer. It wouldn't hurt just to defer to your next scheduled meeting.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion to defer the second reading of ordinance 2025-14 to the next meeting, which is
16th.
June 16th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion to defer the second reading of this ordinance to the next scheduled June 16th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have comments? Mr. Van Giesen, Mr. Orzillo. All those in favor, raise their right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? All those, the ordinance, or the motion is passed. I'm just not with it today. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye and raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.